The following podcast is recorded and produced by Emerge, a media creators co-op.
What does Bitcoin do? Bitcoin automates monetary policy. It is the most disciplined monetary policy in the world. For 15 years, it has done exactly what it said it was going to do, and it has not deviated in any way. And so whether we were talking about AI, Bitcoin, robotics, etc., I continue to argue that we are actually not in any one of those industries. We are simply in the age of automation. We are squeezing inefficiencies out of financial markets and out of the economy. And in doing so, we are bringing automation into the world. As we do that, that is highly deflationary. And that is why you are seeing so many headwinds for various assets and the Fed's hand being forced is because deflation is a much bigger risk than inflation right now.
Welcome to the Defion Productions podcast. I'm your host, the hardest working nobody in Bitcoin, Don. We got a lot to talk about this week. We are live out of Western New York. For those of you that don't know that, most of you should if you're watching this podcast. Game 7 tonight, Buffalo Sabres versus Montreal. So we're going to try to make this end right before the puck drops at 7:30. So we will do this for an hour and then let everybody that's watching locally get on to the Buffalo Sabres. Game 7, go Sabres. We got a lot to talk about this week. We started this podcast off here with a Anthony Pompliano clip. A lot of things going on in the economy that we need to address. Let's jump right into it with this tweet right here. U.S. CPI inflation is on track to exceed 5% as early as this year. Over the last 6 months, CPI inflation has averaged plus 0.4% on a month-over-month basis, with March and April reading as high as plus 0.9% and plus 0.6% respectively. If this trend continues, that puts year-over-year inflation on pace to surge to plus 5.2% by the November midterms. That would be the highest level since February of 2023 and more than double the February 2026 print, which is before the war, ironically. Even if monthly inflation prints ease to plus 0.3%, the year-over-year inflation rate would still rise to 4.4%, the highest since April of 2023, putting inflation back in full swing. And you can take a look at this chart. U.S. CPI on course for 5% or more by the November midterms. That will not be good for Republicans. That will not be good for President Trump. Things are just not looking very good. And it has everything to do with what's going on in Iran right now. I mean, things were hot or let's say lukewarm prior to this conflict, but things are just boiling hot now with the conflict in Iran, with what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz and how this affects everything. This next tweet puts it into broader focus. This is more along the lines of why these things are happening with the economy. U.S. freight costs are surging. The LMI transportation prices index rose plus 5.6 points in April to 95.0, the highest since April of 2018, peak of 96.0 points, and the third highest since the index was launched in 2016. The Logistics Manager Index, or LMI, is a monthly survey of over 100 U.S. supply chain executives that tracks the expansion or contraction of the U.S. logistics industry across 8 key metrics, including inventory, warehousing, and transportation costs and capacity. A transportation prices reading above 50 indicates that freight costs are rising, while reading below 50 indicates a decline. The LMI Transportation Prices Index has surged plus 40.8 points or plus 75% since September of 2025. The increase in freight costs comes at a time when inflation is already rising to a 3-year high. Inflationary pressures in transportation are intensifying. And you can take a look at this chart here. Higher freight costs means higher prices of goods and services. Higher price of goods and services is higher inflation costs. We as a country, we as the Republican Party, MAGA, whatever, you're running out of excuses in regards to this is a Joe Biden problem or this is a Democrat problem. Like when people, I posted about this earlier. I don't know if you saw, Rich, on Facebook about, I quoted that inflation was rising, prices of goods and services were rising. Everyday Americans, when they go to the grocery store or they go buy goods and services, they don't want to hear that, it's because of Iran or it's because of, stopping Iran from getting nukes or the conflict or they don't want to hear any of that stuff. They just care about the register ring up, what it costs, how it's affecting their personal economy. And the tone deaf rhetoric that we're getting from the administration in the White House is just falling on deaf ears. If you scan social media and you see the amount of people complaining about the prices that they're paying, not just at the pump, but at the grocery store or at just like the little nooks and crannies that they buy in their everyday life, and they're noticing these prices going up, like people don't really give a shit about the why. It's just that it's happening. And for so long, you heard this administration blaming Biden inflation and Bidenomics and all the stuff that the Biden administration did. Like, we're almost 2 years away from that administration. Like, the buck stops here where, Trump's in charge. The Trump administration is in charge. Like, when are they going to take some accountability, Rich?
Well, the funny thing about it is the first thing is that you're right, because it was pretty clear by September before the election that Trump was going to win. I think everybody kind of knew it. So we're coming up on 2 years. And so Trump may not have been in charge to January, but clearly the market was reacting positively that they thought Trump was going to do these things. And then obviously he made all these weird decisions on tariffs and then this war. And it's like the narrative is from the administration is that we need to do this to keep you safe. But the problem is most of the people that are younger than us, and I'm a little bit older than you, don't give a shit about Iran. They don't care.
Or geopolitics in general.
They don't care about they don't think about this. They're thinking about the fact that they can't afford their house. Inflation keeps the rise. Cars more expensive. Gas is more expensive. Everything's more expensive. Anywhere you go, I'm trying to remember a time when people were talking so much about how expensive things are. I don't remember a time. I think I'd have to go back to the 70s when I was a little kid. I don't remember a time when people were talking so much about this. And yes, inflation was higher back in the 70s or whatever. But I looked at a bunch of charts with this stuff that, I've been trying to get better at the money side of things. And yes, the inflation was higher back then. It was 8% or 9% or whatever it was in the late 70s, before Reagan came in. But everything was cheaper. And there were other things that were cheaper too. You didn't have as many expenses as we all have now. Yes, we have cell phones and we have all these things that we didn't have in that time period. So whether we should have them or not doesn't matter. They're part of people's budget now. And you didn't have that extra internet bill that's $100 a month, or whatever you have.
We are at day 80 of this conflict. It started 80 days ago.
It was going to be over in a week and a half.
And yeah, we were told early on it was going to be a couple of weeks, and we're at day 80. So that means we're 10 days away from 3 months. So the knock-on effects of people spending more, not just at the pump, like I said, but at the grocery store and everywhere that they go to buy their goods and services, is the thing at the front of people's psyche and minds right now. It's most, like I said, and you said, most people don't care about geopolitics. They don't care about Iran. They don't care about Israel, or most people. Like, you can't just look at, social media.
It's always about the economy, stupid. Like, that's the line.
Yeah.
Right? I don't remember who said that, which candidate said that. It's about the economy. Like, it's always about the economy. And ultimately, like, especially when the economy's good, then you start worrying, then you start getting excited about, I'm mad about this or I'm mad about that, because the economy, if everything else is down. But when the economy is bad, and it is bad, I don't care what the stock market you say in the stock market, and I know you're going to probably mention that at some point. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter, because most of us, even if I have all this money in the stock market, I can't touch it. So I don't care. I don't care that my stock market.
Not to mention that 87% of the stock market is held by 10% of the population.
Right.
So 90% of the population is holding on to 13% of the stock market. So it's just not a relevant factor to measure. The relevant factor is Main Street, not Wall Street. And Main Street is 100% unequivocally suffering right now.
Yeah. The other thing I want to say real quick is that what I think is also making people really mad is they don't like the narrative that they're hearing, because they're saying stuff like, well, he got caught saying something like, I don't care about people's fiscal problems or financial whatever problems. It's not. I don't think about it at all. And then the president, what's his face from the Johnson.
Speaker of the House.
Speaker of the House is like
talking about how much they need to make more money.
We have to be able to trade because we don't make enough money. I'm like, you work 87 days a year, like
make $175,000 a year.
Yeah, like as a retired teacher, all I ever got is, you only work 8 months a year, all this stuff. Like, so nobody wants to hear that.
No,
they're not
right now. Not right now.
They're not. They don't want to hear that. Like, I can't afford. Like, don't tell me. Well, we did because the Commerce Secretary is like, yeah, but look what we did to address the price of eggs. I'm like, okay, that's one thing you addressed. Everything else is through the roof, and you can see it by every statistic.
Yeah, let's put this next tweet up because this has a lot to do with what's going on as well, not just in the last year or two, just how things have been playing out for a while. In the past year, the world has printed 9.3% more money. Global M2 money supply has reached 141 trillion in 2026. When inflation starts to run hotter again, they will blame it on Iran and other proximate factors, which they're doing. But the root driver is the money printer has been running hot for the last year. Where? China increased their money supply by 13.6% in the last 12 months. Their M2 is now 50 trillion, making it the largest global driver of fiat inflation. U.S. growth in M2 is just 4.6% over the last 12 months, making the U.S. comparatively responsible, which is hilarious. But make no mistake, this means your dollars have been debased by almost 1/20th of their value in just a year. Since we live in a global economy, we're subject to the aggregate impact of global money printing. The U.S. has been accustomed to being the largest monetary base and therefore largely controlled global debasement. But China's money supply is now 2x as large as the U.S.'s. Your savings are now being debased by Chinese monetary policy decisions, and you have no control. Nobody asked your permission. Nobody told you it was happening, but your savings just got diluted by 9.3% in 1 year. Note, I'm currently updating the global asset landscape for 2026. See prior tweet, yada, yada, yada. So, Rich, I sent you, and I can't get Facebook up right now, but I'll give the gist to the viewers. So I posted a Facebook post a couple of days ago to a friend of mine I went to college with who's like heavy in the stock market. Like he loves like tech stocks and he's done very well in stocks. And I posted that since the year 2000, the average amount of money printing, so the average expansion of the money supply has been 7%. So going back to the year 2000, last 26 years, we've averaged 7% more dollars into the system every single year for the last 26 years. The S&P 500 is up 7.9%. So the S&P 500 is outpacing money supply expansion by less than 1%. So think about that, right? The S&P 500 is going up 7.9% on a nominal term, meaning real numbers, 7.9%. But the money supply is expanding 7%, which means every year aggregately 7% more dollars are being printed. The stock market's up 7.9%. So is the stock market, and we've talked about this conspiracy theory for a long time, especially as Bitcoiners, how much is the stock market actually up? And how much does it have to do with money printing and it flowing into assets? Which we've talked about in this podcast many times and covered often. The fact that the wealthy, the top 1%, or if we're talking about stock market, top 10%, do not care about inflation. Which is why you hear the people that don't care about inflation telling you not to care about inflation. Because the people that don't care about inflation are heavily invested in assets that are outpacing money supply expansion, which is just keeping pace or outpacing inflation. The rest of us, or those of us, not us Bitcoiners that are holding Bitcoin, but people that the normal everyday plebs that are not exposed to any assets are getting crushed by inflation because the money supply is expanding, prices of goods and services are going up, and they have no exposure to anything to outpace that price that they're feeling at the point of service with goods and services. And I had this back and forth with my friend who's highly educated. He's actually an educator. He actually works in the educational system. He's got a bachelor's, he's got a master's. He's done very well financially. And he could not understand that concept. He kept coming back to, well, you're a Bitcoin guy and I'm a stocks guy. I got no problem with Bitcoin, but stocks are my thing. And I'm like, this is not a stocks and Bitcoin conversation that we're having. I'm having a conversation about the fact that you're caught up in the nominal percentage of gains, but you don't realize like where those gains are coming from. And he's like, oh, they're great companies. And I'm not here to debate that. There are good companies out there. Some of these companies that are getting gains are getting it because they're good companies, but they're not worth the multiple trillions of dollars because of being good companies. They're worth the multiple trillions of dollars because the money supply is expanding and it's flowing into these assets, because that's where people that have money put them. The smart elite people are taking their capital and they don't have it in the bank. Like, we know this. We've talked about that. Wealthy people don't have their money liquid in the bank. They have it in assets. So the money supply has gone up 7%. The S&P 500, which is the indicator that we typically use, is up 7.9%. So if you take away money supply expansion, technically the S&P 500 is up 0.9%. It's averaging. It's an average. It's not up 7.9% since 2000. Averaging 7.9% of gains every year, while the money supply is averaging 7% of expansion every single year.
The way I look at it is, in the money that I put in my investments, those types of investments, for me to outpace inflation and the printing of, the currency, I have to be more risky with that money, because if I'm not more risky with that money, I'm not keeping up. And then I have to find a way that, and I can in the current products that I have to find a way to be able to save that, if I make 9% in a year, 12%, 16%, that somehow I can save that. And there's ways to do that. But the products that I'm currently in, I don't have that option because I'm in your traditional 401k.
You're bringing up a good point. And I want to zero in on something because I think it's important to bring this up. This is directed towards your Bernie Sanders progressives, your AOC progressives, and your Elizabeth Warren progressives. That platform, which we both know is bullshit. Like, they don't really mean it. It's just a platform. But the people that support them believe it because they don't understand the system, where they say tax the rich. What you just said is extremely important. And that's the dirty little secret of our financial system. They can't tax the rich the way that the AOCs and the Bernie Sanders and the Elizabeth Warrens want you to believe to do it, because they have to make risky bets in order for the system to continue to flow the way that it does. Right. Because if you properly tax them, they'll be de-incentivized to take those risks, and then the whole Ponzi scheme comes crashing down.
Right. I mean,
it all collapses.
There's definitely things that you can do that make it a little bit fair. I don't pretend to know exactly what they are because I'm not smart enough, but there should be people smart enough to be figuring out a way. How do we get them to pay us to make more? Because again, whether it's a flat tax or what, I don't know what it is. And I'm not going to say that I know. But they say things that sound good. And both sides, all these politicians, they come out with these things to make it sound good. So for example, like we got a new Fed chair. And he's going to be under pressure to lower the interest rates because that'll sound like a big win, for this administration.
Poly markets got rate hikes more likely than rate cuts.
I know
by December.
And Trump's
and poly markets locked in.
Yeah,
poly markets locked in. That's, you can take that pretty much to the bank, and that tracks from the first. How far into this podcast? 17 minutes. We've been talking about inflation's running hot. You can't cut rates into hot inflation.
Lose his mind because I got this. I wanted him to do this, and he's going to use. And the problem is everybody knows the odds of if you lower the interest rates, inflation goes up. Like, it's not a direct correlation. It's not a cause and effect, but there's a bunch of things that it causes that does eventually have that effect. Rarely has the interest rates ever been lowered and inflation didn't shoot up. And you already have high inflation. What are you going to do? It's going to make it even worse. And in this time period,
the real concern, which is it's a real concern that Trump has and the administration has, is that we finance the debt that we have now originally at such low rates because we borrowed that money when the rates were near zero or at zero. And now we're going to have to refinance that same debt at these higher interest rates, which means the amount of money we're going to be responsible for to service the debt is going to be even higher, which means when you pay your credit cards, when you pay your mortgage rates, when you pay your car loan rates, those are going to be higher. Right. So it puts the whole economy at risk of recession or worse.
Well, that's why everyone is getting these phone calls from your car dealership, because let's say you bought your car 4 years ago. Okay. Mm-hmm. Maybe you bought it over 5 years, or a lot of people even do 6 years now. And 5-6 years ago, the interest rates on those cars were what, 2%? You could get almost no interest on cars. So now they're like, okay, we've got to figure out a way to get more money. So they're like, hey, your car is really valuable for us. Your 2000 whatever Dodge Nissan is something that we really we really want it. So, bring it in. And that's only because they know they're going to make more money because the interest rates are so much higher.
Put this tweet up here because this is an important one. This was today. What's today? The 18th? Say the 18th. This is from yesterday. U.S. grocery prices rise at fastest monthly pace in nearly 4 years. And I show this because I also want to show this tweet from just a regular everyday American down here, this Brian Eastwood guy. My family of 6 is feeling it. We are really having to watch our spending right now. We've already canceled one of our summer beach trips because we are uncertain how much worse this climb and cost is going to get. That is real everyday Americans' worry right now. Not where are we at right now and how are things right now? How bad is this going to get? How much worse is this going to get? Because for people not paying attention, because again, we talk about it on this podcast, and if you follow certain people on social media, your algorithm shifts in a certain way to make you believe that everybody's worried about certain things, but we know they're not. Most people don't know what's going on in Iran. They don't know what's really happening. They don't know what this is all about, but they're shopping every week for groceries or every month for groceries, or they're at the gas pump every week or more, depending on what job they do. And people are like, what the hell just happened? A couple of months ago, I was paying X amount of dollars for all of my bills. I mean, not just everybody gets caught up in gas prices. This is everything. Look at grocery prices. Like, everybody's affected by grocery prices. And the thing about grocery prices, that's like gas prices and grocery prices are two different conversations. Right. Gas prices can come down. We've learned, or you should have learned by now, when grocery prices rise, that's the new bottom. That's not going backwards. Grocery prices rise, and you hope that they don't get higher. They don't go backwards. They stay right at the new norm. Like, look at the prices in 2019 and look at the prices during and post-COVID. We haven't gone back to 2019 prices. Nowhere near that.
Almost nothing ever does that.
Technology. That's it. Your TVs and your electronics. That's the only stuff that goes backwards. Everything else goes forwards. So now we're at these new prices of groceries that we're worried about. Now the worry is, how much worse does it get? How much higher are these going to go? What kind of decisions is a family going to have to make in the next couple of months, especially in summer, where traditionally prices go up anyways because people are doing more things. They're traveling more. Gas already goes up just because of that, like supply and demand. So what real decisions are American families going to have to make in the next couple of months that's really going to affect things?
And what the problem is you talk about the stuff in the algorithm. I got to put your tweet back up for a second, because read that first comment. How stupid that comment is.
Cost me $20 today for butt roast at Sam's, which is several pounds of pulled pork. The bone and scraps are going in a white beans with sausage. That's equal meals for 10 days for dinner for 4. People have no idea how to cook at home or provide if it's not in an Uber. Shaking my.
And that's the kind of stuff that pisses me off. Like, I don't shop at Sam's. So I don't know if he's even accurate in the pricing, but it's like, that's like how we ate, like, in the Depression. Like, you know what I mean? Like that, like, that's not healthy long-term to be eating something that you cook the same thing for 4 days. Even if that is maybe Americans are different now, or maybe we don't need to buy gluten-free this or whatever. You can say, the avocado toast bullshit and all that stuff. But even if, like, it doesn't matter, like, It's not, that's not the point. It still doesn't matter because everything else. So even if it's like, okay, it's groceries, everything else is going up. Everything else that you buy is going through the roof, and it's not going to get better because transportation costs are going to get passed on to the consumer. We all know that. And like you said, we're a global economy. So stuff that's coming from other places, it's costing them what, 25% more for bananas to get to America. So bananas have to go up by a percentage, maybe not 25%, but they've got to go up 15% because that's the biggest part of the bananas getting here. It
always gets passed on to the consumer.
Yes.
Always. Prices always get passed on to the consumer.
Like you said, it never goes back down.
Which is why people like me and others were warning about the whole tariff thing. Like, it's going to get passed on. The consumer always loses, no matter what. Always loses. Put this next tweet up for us. From Chris Reed from the Bitcoin Mindset Podcast. Increase their salaries by 2%, then increase the money supply by 8%. Now call savings their bank accounts that give them 1%. Then call the risk-free rate 4% tied to T-bills to trick them into thinking inflation and cost of living is only 2%, accelerating only as fast as their salary. Then have riskier debt instruments, for example, junk and private credit, pay 5 to 8% to make them think they're outpacing monetary debasement. Then call Bitcoin a scam so they will be distracted and stay on the never-ending hamster wheel. That is the thing that nobody wants to really talk about. The fact, like those stats and those numbers, like they need to be highlighted. The fact that we talk about a 2% benchmark for inflation when they're printing at an average of 7%, like this says at 8, but like the average since the year 2000 has been 7%. So when you're increasing the money supply by 7%, that is inflation. You're inflating the money supply. You're causing prices to go up to reflect the change in the monetary instrument that you're using to price goods and services. And then you get a salary raise of 2 or 3%. If you're not getting if you haven't got a salary raise of 7% every single year, basically since 2000, you're just getting smoked. Right. Absolutely smoked. And at what point do people, I don't know, like I'm in a group chat with a couple of my best friends, and like we've talked more in the last like 3 or 4 years about like the potential for a civil war than at any point in time ever, and that I can ever think of, like having these conversations. And I veer on the side of like, I don't think it's going to happen necessarily, but like we're accelerating at this really quick clip in the last like 3-4 months with this conflict that has no end in sight. Like, when are people just going to be tired of it in revolt?
I haven't said in a while on the pod, but one of the things that, you know, like I'm a student of history, not like that good at it, but like there's things that I know a lot about, like the Roman Empire. I know a lot about, and the Roman Empire always was worried about being the people rising up. They had a huge army, but they said, you know, if they rose up, they could defeat us. You know what we got to do? We got to keep them entertained. So that's the expression, bread and circuses. And as a population, we are entertained, you know, to keep us busy. So the bread and circuses keep people, you know, but if you think about even the Roman Empire, they were giving you bread, they were giving you like infrastructure, things like that, and circuses. They were entertaining you. They had the, you know, the Colosseums and those things. We're not even doing that anymore. Like, because we can't just give you the bread, and we can't, like, because we're not even doing things like keeping up our infrastructure as a country. So, you know, and then there's just the entertainment is the Super Bowl. Like,
what happened to the infrastructure bill that was passed during Biden's administration, right?
Well, I mean, like there was, to be honest, the problem with the infrastructure bill is there's a lot of really, really good things in the infrastructure bill. The problem is it goes to the areas that contribute the most across the country too. Like red states, blue states. I don't care what state you're from. Everybody got a lot of people got a lot in the infrastructure bill, but a lot of people, the haves in the better neighborhoods and the better communities and the better cities got a lot.
We never saw anything. Bill. Did we see any of that?
Because again, we're in a relatively compressed area. Most of the infrastructure bill, it's going to things in New York State like repairing bridges because our bridges are really behind. You know, things like that. They're trying to fix things like the electrical grid and things like that. A lot of things that you don't really see. But what it did do in some places, because that the infrastructure bill improved certain things, it allowed for a few of the plants that were some of the infrastructure stuff that like plants that were getting built that Biden was able to negotiate, which he did a few really nice ones, because the infrastructure was going to be put in place so that we could do that. But if you think about all the money that we spent sending money to these stupid wars, if that was going to just our infrastructure for high-speed rail or whatever it is, that would improve. But and that's what I think the Civil War of America will eventually be. We're going to be so fed up that our money is spent on like Israel, and like people don't care about Israel. They don't. It's one of the least important things. They don't care about what's going on in the Middle East. They care about the fact that there's potholes all over their streets, whether that's a local issue or a state issue or a federal road. They want that's going to be the thing. That's going to be the rebellion, I think, where it's not going to be a physical civil war. It's going to be a political civil war is what I think.
Another graphic for us to take a look at and talk about. Yields on government bonds did not start rising because of the war, which is an important fact. They, in fact, began to skyrocket higher after massive central bank money printing in 2020 and 2021 and continue higher because of relentless government deficit spending. And if you look at this chart, like it was bottoming right when we had that COVID stuff, obviously, and then just it's been the skyrocketing trajectory ever since. Like massive money printing is always going to cause prices of goods and services to rise higher, and we're just experiencing this. I mean, I don't know what the solution. I mean, obviously the solution is Bitcoin because that's what this podcast is about. That's what we try to talk about, getting people to understand. But like the majority of people, unfortunately, aren't paying attention to Bitcoin either. They don't pay attention to traditional finance, so they're definitely not paying attention to Bitcoin. So like, I don't, this is going to end bad. I guess that's kind of like what I'm saying. Like this just ends bad.
I think we're headed for, forget recession.
Depression?
I think it's a depression. I think we're going to end up at some point with even the rich will be affected. And that's the only time that the country ever changed what they did was when the rich got affected by, because the rich don't care about the recession. They don't. They're unaffected by it. You've said that before.
They
Those
typically
types of
are
things they don't care.
unharmed. Most overwhelmingly, some will be obviously, but overwhelmingly are unharmed.
But they don't. They're not affected enough that they want to change.
They actually end up better because they pick up depressed assets at lower prices and end up making way more money on the other side of it.
But until you get to a point where there's a depression where people just give up on their homes and they're homeless because they can't afford it, because they lose their jobs because the plants all close, until things like that happen, like I just don't think the rich will ever decide like they have to act differently, because they aren't really affected by most. It's maybe, I only could, I can't buy this year, or I only made whatever. I only have this much, in assets now. I just don't think until something like really major happens. And the interesting thing is, like even, what one of the things is like, what's his face? I can't think of the term that the president of China said when Trump was visiting him last week. The term, I forget what the term is, but basically saying the transition of the economic power to the next economic power. And if you don't believe that China is the next economic power, then you're just too rah-rah about your country.
Yep, 100%.
You really got to give up on
100%.
this rah-rah country stuff and realize what's happening.
We're picking fights with people and countries that aren't really our main adversaries and threats, but that's a whole nother conversation. I want to pivot to talk about what's going to be happening tomorrow. I've talked about in this podcast ad nauseum my views on voting. I even interviewed somebody who's pro-voting, and I made my anti-voting stance. I'm gonna say that tomorrow is going to be a big pointer or a big precursor for me to see if I change how I feel about the voting process, or if it just solidifies what I've been saying for years now on if voting really matters. And that is in the Thomas Massie, Kentucky primary. And you can put this up on the screen here. Thomas Massie has his primary election tomorrow. these are indisputable facts. So these aren't opinionated. This is just fact checked. AIPAC spent $9 million to destroy Thomas Massie. On Tuesday, Kentucky votes on whether it worked. Massie voted against Israel aid, called Trump's Iran strikes unconstitutional, and refused to let the Epstein files go. So the machine came for him. Pro-Israel groups, the Republican Jewish Coalition, and the likes, all in for one Kentucky House seat. The total spent, and this is it's up to 33 or 34 now, but when this tweet was made, 32 million, which makes this the most expensive House primary in U.S. history, and that's by tens of millions. That's not by a couple of million. I don't know if you want to look it up, Rich, while we're going live, but like I don't know what the previous record is, but this blows it out of the water. It's not even
this
close.
Is a Senate primary.
This is a Senate primary. It's not even the general.
Right.
This is a primary.
For a House primary, it's I forget, I did look, and it's something like 7-8 million more than the next previous one. Like 50% more.
Thomas Massie had a double-digit lead as of like last month. And all this money came in. And as of yesterday, his opponent, which I'm not even going to say his name because I'm not even going to give him the satisfaction, he's ahead. He's leading Massie right now, which is just wild. So Thomas Massie has voted against a couple of Trump's MAGA things. Trump will make you believe that he's voted against everything. I heard earlier that he's voted with Republicans on 88% of their of whatever they've put forward, and the average in the Republicans in the Senate is like 95%. So he's like 7 percentage points below the average. But he's still voting 88% of the time with Republicans. They'd make you believe he's like being funded by Democrats and voting Democrat. And the machine has come for him. So he was a shoo-in for this primary, and now all this money has been thrown at his opponent. And my belief has been that the people in power will put in who they want, and that voting doesn't matter. If Thomas Massie loses his seat, it solidifies that stance, that position. If Thomas Massie survives this, I have to reevaluate my stance on voting. That's what I will say, Rich. Say that on this podcast. So I'm watching this Kentucky primary very closely because I really have felt for a long time that voting doesn't matter, because I think stuff like this exists, and stuff like this takes people out of their positions of governing and puts people in that the machine wants. And if Thomas Massie loses his seat, what's the argument on the other side? How do you argue that voting matters?
Yeah, because if it comes to the point that, and again, the part of the problem is just this
double digits. He was a double-digit leader to get his seat back as of a month ago.
And part of the problem is too, this is why it's frustrating, is that I did look it up, like over 15 million of it is coming from Israeli-backed organizations.
Of course.
So it's not,
because he's been highly critical of the Israeli lobby.
It's not some American thing. This is an
foreign
external
interest,
because they're so nervous. Because I saw an article yesterday, 2 days ago, that said that right now in the world, Israel is considered the least liked country in the world. Like, I think the United States is in the bottom, whatever now, but Israel is the worst, so you forget about, they don't. No one respects us. No one likes us now. They weren't real fond of us over the years, and that's fine. I don't care if they like us, but when it comes right down to it, you're not, if your country is being bought and paid for, and Israel gets free health care, and because we partially fund Israel, but I can't afford stuff.
We do.
Get out of here. Like, you're not paying attention. And I will admit, 4 years ago, I really wasn't paying attention to Israel. I thought, the Holocaust, blah, 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 blah. Then you really start to learn, and you start to educate yourself. But how much money we waste on these wars in the Middle East, and a lot of them because Israel says we should do this, and Israel should do this, we should do this. And again, I am not anti-Jewish. I'm not anti-Semite. I am anti-Israel. And Israel is a country. It is not a religious organization. I'm not against a religious organization. I'm against a country whose policies affect me every single day. And I understand your point on voting. And I vote, but I understand I can understand why people don't vote because they're just, what's the point?
I think, and if Thomas Massie loses, I'm going to be highlighting that. Like, that's going to be like,
no,
I'm going to make some videos.
Narrative why,
I'm going to make some videos
matter.
on that.
Yeah.
I'm going to be completely honest with you. I am hoping to be wrong tomorrow. I'm hoping Thomas Massie holds on to that seat, and I have to reevaluate my stance on voting, because I will. I will promise the viewers, I will promise my detractors on how I stand in regards to voting. If Thomas Massie holds on to this seat, I will reevaluate what I've said in the past and how I view voting. If he can hold, because it's an absolute all-out onslaught. Like I said, he was leading this seat and basically a shoo-in about a month or two ago to retain a seat, like most are in Congress. And when the Israeli-backed lobby, and not just Israeli-backed lobby, but everybody on the pro-Trump side, I also read, and I've seen some pushback on this because of some constitutional legalities, but apparently Pete Hegseth, who has been campaigning for the opponent, is violating the Hatch Act.
Oh, he is. That's definitely.
But somebody was saying that there's some the fact that the Hatch Act exists may pose some constitutional gray area. So I'm not well versed enough to say if that's the case or not.
Myself, but it's definitely a clear.
But I've seen people talking about that.
He's not allowed to campaign. There are certain people that are allowed to campaign. He is not. His specific position.
He's a cabinet member, right?
Yes. There's specific members of the administration. They're not allowed. The president can, but there's certain people that can't. And he's one of them. And I don't even think it's even every single cabinet member. I'd have to look it up again. I was reading the article and then I got distracted by something. But, but when it comes right down to it, who cares? Because they don't do anything. Like, it's not like anybody's going to do anything. I guess Massie could theoretically fight this in court. So I wouldn't be surprised if he loses the primary, if he doesn't take it to court. And I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't stay on the ticket as an independent. He doesn't have,
yeah,
he can still run. He can still run.
It's just a primary. You're right.
And it's just a primary. So it doesn't mean he's out. He could continue to run. And I don't think that whoever the Democratic candidate is going to be that popular that splitting the vote would give the seat to a Democrat. I think
that would be the irony of all ironies.
But I think a lot of the Democrats,
and you know what? It's funny you say that. You bring that up. The fact that there's like, you're taking it so personal with Thomas Massie that you're jeopardizing a seat that you hold in which you know is going to be a hotly contested midterm, and you're taking the gamble. You're out of complete spite. Yeah. You're taking the gamble of, like you just said, Massie could say, F you, I'm running as an independent, and he could split the Republican vote, and you could end up giving that seat to the Democrats.
And he got into a big
Very
fight.
good point. I didn't even think of that. You're right.
The president got into a big fight with Boebert the other day, apparently. And apparently people are trying to find the recordings of the calls where he was yelling at her, and he's threatening to go after her next because she keeps saying, because her constituents are saying, I want to see the Epstein files. They don't care about her constituency. She came out and said at point blank, they don't care about Iran. They are not scared of Iran. They want, and whether it's Trump or not, they don't even know. They just want people prosecuted, and they won't even open up a single investigation. Yeah. And that has damaged with a lot of true MAGA people.
The problem with Trump that I've been calling out since I went anti-Trump in 2018-ish, I would say. I 2016 when he won, I thought he might do a good job. I didn't vote for him because I don't vote, but I was thinking that the change would be good. And I saw through it by like 2018, 2019. The problem with Trump is you have to be 100% loyal to him. You saw it with James Comey. I mean, like Comey or not, he said in a meeting, he asked for him to pledge loyalty to, like, that's just asinine. Like, it's a democratic process. You should want people to disagree with you to get a differing perspective at the very least.
Well, that's why they keep fighting.
And Trump, Trump wants 100% loyalty. I would bet the fact that it's 95% or 96%, he still gets irked by the 3, 4, or 5% when people vote against his agenda.
Sure.
He wants 100% loyalty. That's not how a democracy works. It's not a democracy anyways, newsflash, spoiler alert. But the fact of the illusion of the democracy is you should want some pushback. You should want some debate. Like, that's what you do. He wants everyone in his team to think exactly alike, and anybody with a differing opinion or a differing perspective is excommunicated.
Well, the interesting thing on
that's dangerous. That's the point. That's dangerous.
The interesting thing on the Massie thing is that if he runs with as an independent, there, and because he stood up against Trump,
he may get Democrat vote.
He will get enough Democrats that will realize that whoever the Democrat, Joe Blow from wherever,
I don't even know
whoever it is, it won't even matter because they have to have their primary too.
Yeah,
they won't care. They're saying, you know what? Massie is a thorn in the side for Trump. He's pushing for the Epstein files. He's pushing for the end of this stuff that these endless wars and stuff, and that this endless war in Iran that's going to go on forever because he doesn't know how to get out of it. He got tricked into it, and now he doesn't know to get out. He thought that they would wipe the floor, and even the tweet today was, like, I was going to bomb him, but now I got to wait because all the presidents of every country in the Middle East and the Saudi prince and everybody called me and told me not to. And, but he said the other thing, but they have to walk out with their arms up. They're going to walk out of Tehran. Where are they walking to? Where are these people? Where are the military in Tehran walking to without the guns? Is this a World War II? What are they talking about? Like, that's not happening. They've been preparing for this since 1979. They're not giving up. And if anything, they've actually realized now they can control the strait, and there's nothing anyone can do. They're going to make money off of this. And he doesn't know how to get out of it. He can't salvage a win. There's no way to salvage a win. So he's just going to waste time. Like, he's just going to, because he doesn't know what else to do. I mean, and that's the thing. Like, Massie will continue. So it'd be interesting. I don't know if Massie would caucus with the Democrats, but it would affect their ability to have a primary, it's one more seat that he would lose in the majority. It's a wash for both sides. So it's just basically an abstention essentially. So but it hurts the Republicans. It doesn't help the Democrats, but it hurts the Republicans more if he wins somehow he runs as an independent, he wins. I don't think he's going to leave.
Just looking at some articles, it looks like what they're saying as of tonight is that it's deadlocked. The case, the primary is deadlocked.
It's going to be who shows up tomorrow. What's the weather like? All those funny things that sometimes make a difference.
The first week of April, Massie was leading by 9 percentage points.
Yep. And
now it's deadlocked. And that's the thing. Like, it's not people just doing research on their own. It's not people like, it's literally a mass campaign. And this is why I feel the way I do about voting, because people are just influenced by propaganda and bullshit. Absolute propaganda and bullshit. MAGA is a complete propaganda and bullshit platform right now. It's garbage. It's complete garbage. Like, the MAGA movement that's left over now, it's even worse than the original MAGA movement, for all its flaws, was nothing compared to what it is now. No matter what you felt about MAGA a year ago or 2 years ago,
right?
However you felt about that, you should wish that MAGA was that now. Because it's completely morphed into something different and more evil and vile, in my opinion.
Well, I agree. I mean, and I think that's the problem, because it's kind of like the Tea Party, for example. The Tea Party in the beginning, whether you agreed with their philosophy, they had some real interesting political ideas that could have changed and eventually, once a lot of those guys and gals got in, they realized, we're grifters. They became in the system now. Yep. And whether it's, you can look at even more recently, what's her name, who made Major Taylor Greene, like how much she made all her money. I'm out now, partially because she just realized, I think she was realizing that she would have to do what Massie's doing, because she knew her constituency was going to go after her because she was one of those ones that said, release the files. I think for her, this is just me hypothesizing and guessing, because she said it. I've seen her say it on numerous podcasts, and she's never said this is the reason, but I think it's the reason. What Trump said about her son, I think made her snap. Okay. Yeah.
I think because I forget how she put it exactly, but it was something along the lines of, like, her son she mentioned to Trump, you're coming at me hard, Mr. President. Like, my son's getting bullied or his life's in something. And he's just like, if something happens to your son, it's your fault. And I think she was like, yeah, I'm out. I think that was her. Yeah, I'm out.
I forgot that. I totally forgot about that.
Because that makes a lot of sense for a mom and somebody like, yeah, there's politics. And I think for her, it was like, okay, like, this is not worth it anymore.
Right.
Like, if the guy had been riding, because she's rode hard for him.
She did.
She took a lot of heat from the media, and she was like the MAGA spokesperson. And when like the dude is like saying that, I think it's like, what am I doing? Like, this is ridiculous at this point.
Well, you can look at another example,
and that's not me being pro Marjorie Taylor Greene. That's just me saying I think that's what she thought.
At some point, there was a level like like that she decided that her son's more important than the position, and good for her. But also, if you look at just somebody like a Ben Shapiro, like,
oh, what a piece of shit that guy is.
But 2 years ago, he was one of the most influential people in social media.
I was calling him a piece of shit 2 years ago.
No, regardless.
I know what you're saying. I know what you mean.
You're talking about the people that
I'm glad everybody else caught on, but yeah.
Well, he has lost such a percentage because he refuses to ever say anything.
Hate to see it.
Yes.
Hate this. Daily Wire is going down the toilet. Hate to see it. Hate to see it. Let's get a couple of these other articles out before we wrap this up for Game 7. Mm-hmm. Buffalo Sabres versus the Habs. Go Sabres. Iran has launched Hormuz Safe, a Bitcoin-backed insurance service for shipping companies that want to transit the Strait of Hormuz. Details include the Iranian government says it could generate more than $10 billion in revenue from this program. The service will be for Iranian shipping companies and cargo owners. The shipment will be covered from the moment of confirmation, and signed receipt will be given to the owner, Iran says. It is unclear if the insurance service will be charged in addition to tolls, which have been as much as $2 million per ship. Iran says an official website with more information is coming soon. And this is something that they plan on doing Lloyd's of London was insuring most of the Strait. They stepped out when all this shit got crazy. So like the big thing is that the Strait is not necessarily closed per se. That's the big misunderstanding. It's not that there's like a closure of the Strait. It's that Lloyd's of London stepped out as the insurer and nobody else stepped in. So like it's go at your own risk. And there's just too much cargo dollars at risk for somebody to take that chance. So they're not navigating it. So Iran stepping in to ensure it, I think is genius. And this is just another thing that the Trump administration miscalculated, that Iran would step in and create their own insurance company and fill that gap and give them another opportunity to generate revenue. I mean,
and the problem,
3D chess, right?
Like, it doesn't matter what China says to them or Russia says to them. If they're making that kind of money off of controlling the Strait, like there's no safeguard. There's nothing to tell. There's really not a lot that you can do. And Russia can't say, well, we're not going to buy oil from you. What is Russia going to do? Like, Iran has figured out, maybe they always knew this, that they had the upper hand.
One's Bitcoin to me, it's like fire. It's going to change.
Sorry, didn't mean to do that.
No, sorry.
I was going to play the video. I was trying to get it queued up and it just started playing. Okay. Let's jump into that though. This is a Michael Saylor video. This is from December 6th, 2020, only a few months after his first Bitcoin buy. So this is pre like almost million Bitcoin strategy, pre all the Bitcoin backed securities, the stretch, everything he's created. This is Michael Saylor before all of that. This is a 2-minute clip of him speaking that I thought would be good to go back to. So let's play this.
Like fire is going to change the civilization. What is Bitcoin to you? Well, it's an uncorrelated asset. And if you put 2% of your portfolio in an uncorrelated asset, you'll have less volatility. And let's back test this for a decade and see whether or not this might be an uncorrelated volatility reducing thing. And I think, man, that's it's like, so what is the word? Like Bitcoin deserves better than that. But also, I give you fire and you can conquer the world, change the civilization, reroute the course of human history. And you want to call that an uncorrelated asset?
Yeah,
like it's
exactly.
It's a 1%, a 2%. We want people to do a 1% allocation to an uncorrelated asset. And I'm seeing aqueducts and roads and airplanes. And and their defense would be like, we have to talk to the investment advisors in language they understand. But I would disagree. I think it's it underestimates the strength of human intellect. I think that if you explain to them that this is an engineering breakthrough, and the first time in human history, we have a monetary network that will store and channel energy without power loss. It's like a railroad. It's like mass transit. It's something extraordinary that's going to be an underpinning of civilization. There were investors that invested in Standard Oil, and there were investors that invested in U.S. Steel. In fact, the greatest of financial investors is J.P. Morgan, and he's the guy that actually put together the merger that created U.S. Steel, when he merged Carnegie's interest with the other steel interest. It's like they got it. And I think that investors will get this too. I don't think you got to dumb it down and say something like it's an uncorrelated asset to decrease the volatility in your investment portfolio.
And we will end on this tweet here, which I thought was a good one by Satoshi Bagger. You don't just spend money, you spend your life force earning it. Hours, days, years. Then most people store that energy in something designed to lose value over time. That's the trap. The game is not only how do I make money? The deeper question is, how do I preserve the value of my time? Study money, study scarcity, study incentives. Your future depends on it. 3 ways to store your time, 3 very different destinations: fiat money, other assets, and Bitcoin. And it's the belief of this podcast that Bitcoin is the way. All respect to JC and the Catholicism movement. As always, go Sabres. Let's get it tonight. Game 7. Go Western New York. Let's do it. Don't trust, verify. Peace.